Hello, I'm Megan, a 34-year-old entrepreneur who owns a budding app development company. Although it's a small setup, it brings me immense joy and satisfaction. My husband, Willie, is 2 years my senior and works at a bank. We both have a strong passion for our careers, which often leads us into deep discussions that last until the early hours of the morning. Willie is incredibly supportive of my career, and we share household responsibilities equally. We've been married for 5 years now, and although we don't have children yet, we both love kids and hope to start a family someday. I come from a family that owns an auto parts factory, which my father started and my brother now manages. This allows me the freedom to pursue my dream of running my own company. I frequently seek advice from my supportive family, making them a crucial support system in my life. Willie is an only child, and his family owns a small factory. They had hoped he would take over the business, but he chose a career in banking instead, which was a disappointment to his parents. His decision was influenced by several factors. The factory was struggling, and his father, Arthur, was considering closing it down. During his childhood, Willie often listened to his father's discussions with bank employees and was particularly inspired by a banker who visited the factory. This admiration led him to pursue a career in banking, and he now works at a major bank. On the surface, our marriage seems fine, but we face our challenges. My mother-in-law, Denise, doesn't respect my job because I can work from home. She views it as trivial and fails to understand its significance, which is a common issue with older generations who might not grasp the concept of less physically demanding remote jobs. Recently, my mother-in-law made a troubling statement. She insisted that I must join a family trip, declaring absurdly that if I didn't go, I would no longer be considered part of the family. She went as far as to say that not attending the trip would lead to divorce, as she felt the need to re-educate me about family commitments. This conversation happened while my husband, Willie, seemed hesitant and unsure of how to respond. Despite his reluctance, he didn't speak up, and I was left to reluctantly agree to her demands. Little did I know, this trip would be my last with my in-laws. Despite the tension, I remained dedicated to my work and my happiness, navigating these complex family dynamics as best I can. Working from home still means I'm working, and it can be quite tiring. I always make sure to arrange my work schedule around my in-laws' plans to avoid any inconvenience. While I don't expect them to understand the complexities of remote work, it's disheartening when they assume it's easy just because I have a flexible schedule. Beyond this, my mother-in-law, Denise, has several other issues with our lifestyle choices. When Willie and I got married, we built our home strategically located about halfway between both our parents' homes. Despite taking different routes, it takes less than 25 minutes to get to either house. As a couple with 2 incomes, we manage our finances individually. We believe in maintaining our independence and privacy, even within our marriage. We each contribute a fixed amount for our monthly living expenses, save the rest for the house, and manage our finances separately. Denise disapproves of this arrangement too. She believes that couples should share everything and that it's strange for family members to keep secrets from each other. According to her, keeping personal matters private means we are not a true family. I suspect that because Denise does not like me, she looks for reasons to criticize what I do. She adores her son Willie, so in her eyes, I am more of an irritant. Every time we meet, she makes hurtful comments about us not having children yet, a subject that is very sensitive to me. It's generally considered polite to avoid such personal topics, but Denise brings it up every chance she gets. To avoid conflict and not upset Willie, I've even started staying late at work on purpose just to avoid seeing her. Denise has done many things that surprised me, but one incident truly crossed the line. It happened on the day of my best friend's wedding. My friend was moving abroad after her wedding, and I was looking forward to celebrating her big day with her, knowing we wouldn't see each other often after that. However, a week before the wedding, Willie came to me with a request from his father, Arthur. Arthur wanted me to attend an important business reception that same day. Naturally, I refused, as the only thing that would keep me from my friend's wedding would be a life-or-death family emergency. That evening, when I returned home from work, my in-laws were unexpectedly at our house. As soon as Denise saw me, she confronted me angrily. "Megan, what are you thinking? Refusing Arthur's request is outrageous. As Willie's wife, it's only natural to prioritize family obligations. Your refusal is unacceptable, and you need to rethink your priorities," she yelled at me. Willie was there too, caught in the middle of this difficult situation. Willie remained silent as I discovered the reception was critical for the company's future. However, my best friend's wedding was equally significant to me. I explained to Denise, "I understand the situation, but attending my best friend's wedding is very important to me. I don't want to miss it. Besides, I don't work for Arthur's company." As I said this, even Willie interjected, "Can't you make an exception this time? It's really about the survival of the company. I'm going, and it's a family effort. We can make it up to you for missing the wedding. It's a family crisis. Can't you help us?" I was stunned by Willie's words, especially since he knew how much I was looking forward to the wedding. Then Arthur spoke up. "I understand Megan's point, but this time we need her help." The pressure of the moment made it difficult for me to refuse. In the end, I reluctantly agreed to skip my best friend's wedding. I explained the situation to my friend who, knowing about my family dynamics, understood my predicament. She was more concerned about me than her day, which made me grateful for her understanding and kindness. Feeling guilty for missing her big day, but committed to making the reception a success, Willie and I arrived at the venue early on the day of the event. We tried contacting Denise, but she didn't answer her phone. The in-laws finally showed up just 15 minutes before the event was to start, looking disheveled with messy hair and wrinkled clothes. I was taken aback and asked Denise what had happened. "I just overslept," she responded awkwardly, then cautioned me, "Megan, make sure you're not rude." I was on the verge of snapping back, but I managed to hold my tongue. During the reception, Denise, perhaps attempting humor, ended up making a series of inappropriate comments to our guests. I felt a strong sense of pride in myself for maintaining my composure throughout the event, despite the challenging circumstances and Denise's poor handling of social interactions. This experience underscored the complexities of balancing personal desires with family obligations, and it was a day I wouldn't soon forget. Their forced smiles at the reception gave away the awkwardness, and as I had feared, we didn't secure the contract. The event concluded without any success. In hindsight, I would have much preferred attending my best friend's wedding. The failed reception left me frustrated and disillusioned, especially since it had disrupted my plans without any acknowledgement of fault from my in-laws. They brushed off the failure, likening the lack of a contract to dodging a bullet with untrustworthy people. Their ability to dismiss the situation so nonchalantly left me utterly speechless. After this incident, my discomfort around my in-laws grew, and I began to avoid them more. However, one thing I couldn't escape was the annual family trip, a tradition in Willie's family since his childhood, which persisted after our marriage. Each year, I was expected to join. The responsibility of planning, arranging hotels, booking, and researching tourist spots always fell on me. My suggestions were quickly dismissed, and often during these trips I was left behind in the hotel room, missing out on visiting places I might have enjoyed. I dread these family trips and sometimes wish I could fall ill just to avoid them. Now, with this year's trip looming, despite their supposed financial constraints, my in-laws planned another extravagant getaway. As always, I was tasked with the logistics, keeping everyone, especially my often complaining sister-in-law Kayla, in a good mood. Being the sober driver spared me from enduring their tiresome conversations, which was a small relief. However, just before the trip, I received distressing news. My mother had collapsed and was in critical condition. Going on the trip was unthinkable. I needed to see her immediately. As I prepared to head to the hospital, Willie offered to come with me, but I declined. His suggestion felt like he was implying something dire about my mom's prognosis, which I couldn't bear to consider. When Willie and I informed Denise that we wouldn't be able to join the trip, she erupted in anger. "You're saying you can't go on the trip I planned? If you don't come, you're no longer part of the family. As my son's wife, it's common sense to prioritize the family trip, right, Willie?" she exclaimed, seeking affirmation from him. She cut off Willie just as he seemed about to speak, clearly indicating she was not open to other opinions. At that moment, I was too shocked to respond. Nothing could be more important than being with my mom in her critical condition. Just as I gathered myself to reply, my phone rang. It was my brother, confirming the seriousness of our mom's condition. Though my mom's condition was somewhat stable, visiting her was currently impossible due to a contagious disease outbreak. My brother explained that if she recovered, we could arrange a short visit later. This left me unsure about what to do next. Sensing my hesitation, my brother inquired about my concern. I openly shared my dilemma about the family trip versus the urge to be near our mother. Visibly frustrated, he then made a helpful suggestion I hadn't considered in my distress. The trip's destination was near our parents' home. He assured me that from the hotel, I could quickly reach our family's house if necessary. Indeed, if visiting the hospital wasn't an option, whether I stayed at home or the hotel made little difference. Accepting my brother's suggestion, I decided to go on the trip. When I informed Denise, she responded, "Goodness, if you had just said that from the start, I wouldn't have had to get so angry. It's hard to marry someone so naive. Just remember, if you don't come, it's divorce. Honestly, I'll have to re-educate you from now on." Willie looked surprised by his mother's harsh words, but agreed to my condition that I could leave for the hospital if necessary. He joked, "It would be trouble if our driver suddenly disappeared, right? But remember, you're part of this family now, so our needs come first. Your role as my son's wife means this family trip should be your top priority." Denise's triumphant attitude and obvious excitement irked me, but to avoid further conflict, I decided to endure it. On the day of the trip, I was so anxious about my mom that I couldn't put down my phone, despite Denise starting her day with beer and turning the back seat of my car into a party scene. Even Willie joined in the drinking, which surprised me. However, considering everyone had rearranged their schedules for this trip, I thought it would be nice if they could enjoy it. During the trip, Denise's whims were relentless, from demands to stop for bathroom breaks immediately to visits to the grocery store for more alcohol. I felt more like a servant, but I was prepared to endure it for the sake of family peace. Then, a call from my brother brought relief. My mom had survived. Her condition had stabilized and she had regained consciousness. The diagnosis was subarachnoid hemorrhage. Knowing she was getting better allowed me to breathe a sigh of relief and continue the trip with a lighter heart, even amidst the challenging dynamics of my in-laws. Even though my mom's condition had stabilized, I couldn't fully relax just yet. There were concerns about potential after effects. It was a comfort to receive regular updates from my brother, keeping the anxiety at bay. When I shared the news of mom's recovery with my in-laws, Denise dismissively remarked, "If she's better, there's no need to bother us with such news. You're making a big deal out of nothing." Then Arthur chimed in, "Exactly. No need to spoil our trip with such grim news. We're supposed to be enjoying ourselves." I felt alienated by their lack of empathy and couldn't see them as my family. Throughout the trip, their behavior worsened. They caused a ruckus in the hotel with their drinking and partying, which was quite embarrassing and deepened my distress towards them. Thankfully, Mom's condition remained stable, which meant we didn't need to rush to the hospital. This allowed us to complete the trip and return home without further incidents. Once back, while I was busy with laundry, Denise showed up at our house unannounced with a massive pile of her own. "You have a dryer, right? We don't have one, so let me use yours," she demanded, clearly expecting to be accommodated. Exasperated, I told her, "There's a laundromat with dryers nearby. I have a load of my own and I'm using it right now, so it's not possible." Denise snapped back, "Always so stingy. Once you're done, it's fine. I'll come to pick it up tomorrow. Leave it finished by then." She tried to leave her laundry in our washroom, but Willie stepped in. "Go to a laundromat. Megan is tired and she has to work tomorrow. It's not possible," he said. Denise left abruptly, visibly upset that her son was defending me, hurling insults and slamming the door behind her, leaving the laundry. If only things had been different that day. Perhaps the course of events would have changed. Later, Denise returned with a new proposition. "During the trip, I realized something. Megan, you lack awareness of being married to Willie. We might face similar situations in the future, and since we couldn't discuss it then, I decided that you should make a decision," she said, placing a family contract and divorce papers on the table. I was dumbfounded. What even is a family contract? It was ridiculous and only confirmed my belief that she couldn't engage in a normal conversation. Willie then stood up, finally taking a firm stand. "I have something to say. If you keep imposing your biased views on us, I'll cut ties. I can't deal with this anymore. What do you think, Megan? She's not your servant or housekeeper. You're the one who's mistaken about your position." Denise was stunned. Up until now, Willie had hardly ever opposed anything. His newfound assertiveness marked a turning point, suggesting that perhaps things could change for the better between us. Willie had always been quiet about his disagreements with Denise's views, not because he agreed with her, but because he wanted to avoid conflict. However, following his outspoken defense, Denise's anger shifted towards me. She accused me of changing Willie, claiming he used to be so sweet and that I must have brainwashed him. This accusation was harsh and unfair. Willie, standing firm, responded to his mother, "The real issue here is not me being brainwashed by Megan, but your controlling behavior. You're always on a rampage, not listening to anyone else's opinions. Frankly, you're a toxic parent. You've never allowed me to do what I wanted, and now you're directing your venom at Megan. Enough is enough. I'm not going to divorce her, and if you have a problem with our marriage, you should stay out of our lives." This confrontation brought Denise to tears, and she turned to Arthur for support. When Willie made his feelings clear, Arthur simply said, "If that's what Willie thinks, then fine. We'll cut ties, do whatever you want," and he stormed out. I was surprised but relieved that Willie stood up for our relationship like that. After the incident, I discussed the situation with my brother, who became furious upon hearing how Denise and Arthur had treated us. He decided to take action, which unfortunately led to a significant fallout within the in-laws' family. It turned out that my brother's company was a client of my in-laws' company. We had kept our family's company name secret to avoid any imbalance of power or conflict. The in-laws had no idea they were dealing with my family's business. With tensions now high, we could no longer separate business from personal matters. My brother had been frustrated with them for not meeting deadlines, echoing the sentiment, "You can't cherish those who don't cherish you." After discussing it with Willie, who also felt that enough was enough, we made the difficult decision to end the business relationship. Willie agreed that the ongoing issues with his family's company, like not paying on time and missing deadlines, were too problematic to overlook, despite the personal connection. This was a business decision, driven by necessity rather than emotion. We had tolerated these issues because of the family ties, but ultimately professional standards had to be maintained. This move marked a significant turning point, underscoring the importance of boundaries in both family and business dealings. After the business relationship with my brother's company was terminated, my in-laws were shocked to learn why. They approached us in tears, repeatedly apologizing and pleading with my brother to reconsider his decision. However, reinstating the contract was out of the question due to their chronic issues with meeting deadlines. They should have been grateful for the patience we had shown them over the years. Willie took the time to explain the situation to his parents, but they couldn't come to terms with the consequences and ultimately chose to sever ties in anger. Willie wasn't saddened by this outcome. Instead, he felt a sense of relief. For a long time, he had been caught in the exhausting tug-of-war between his family obligations and our life together. Since the separation, we've been living a more peaceful life. I found out that Willie had been quietly supporting his family financially, but he had now ceased those payments. His family's factory, already teetering on the edge of bankruptcy and swamped in debt, inevitably went under. It was eye-opening to discover that Willie had even been paying for those lavish annual trips they insisted on, which explained a lot about their previously extravagant lifestyle. Now, living more modestly, Denise had even taken up a job. Seeing her, who had always prided herself on being a president's wife, now working a cleaning job was a stark contrast. One day, I saw her being scolded at work. While part of me felt it was a form of karma, I also recognized it as a tough lesson in reality for her, one that might eventually help her understand the value of hard work and humility. As for Willie and me, our work continues to thrive. We haven't had children yet, but we are enjoying our careers and our life together is fulfilling. We are even planning an overseas trip for our next vacation. For now, we are content to enjoy life just as we are, without the immediate addition of children, reveling in our journey together and appreciating the quieter moments we've come to cherish.